So, hey everyone, welcome to this special series of College Dunia, where we take interviews of all those students who have converted India's top B schools. Today we have Wagish with us from IIM Bangalore batch of 22-24. Wagish, welcome to the series, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chaitanya, for having me.
Yeah, so jumping straight away to the very first question, Wagish, I really want to know that what was your profile background before you joined IIM Bangalore?
So before joining, I had almost 48 months of experience.
Okay.
So I worked as a software engineer at Accenture, and subsequently I moved on to Tata Steel, where I worked as a end-to-end web applications developer and managerial responsibilities as well.
Right. And about your academic background, like from where did you complete your engineering?
Yeah, so I did my engineering from KT University in Bhubaneswar, Odisha, and I graduated as a mechanical engineer. So basically, I am an engineer, and mechanical engineers are considered like the purest of pure, like
Right.
engineers.
Got it. Okay, so Wagish, is it safe to assume that you appeared for the CAT exam in 2021, right? So basically,
Yes.
you graduated in around 2017 or 2018, like something.
Yeah, I graduated in 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. So 4 years of experience, right?
Yeah, almost. It's like 46 months, but
Right. And what was your CAT percentile, if you don't mind me asking you?
so my CAT percentile was actually 94.12.
Okay.
But I belong to the PWD category, so I was able to convert some good colleges.
Got it. And Wagish, on what basis, like, see, 94.12 is still a great percentile, right? So I really want to know that what were the colleges that you shortlisted for that percentile?
So to give a bit of context to which will help in understanding my decision making. So I had an accident 3 years back, which left me with severe paraplegia, due to which I came under the category of PWD.
Got it.
So for a long while, I had no plans to do an MBA. So I was working as a portfolio manager in Tata Steel, and one day I got this epiphany that I need to do more with my skills that I have, and I decided to give CAT because I thought that was the reason for me to progress in my career. And while filling the form, I actually did not fill any other colleges apart from A, B, and C. So this was a bit
Risky.
because I did not, risky, and I did this because I did not want to have a safety net,
Right.
to fall back on. And I decided that if I have to give CAT, then I'll target these 3 colleges. Otherwise, I'll not do MBA. Apart from these 3, I filled only FMS Delhi.
Right. That was my next question. That okay, ABC is fine. Like we have other colleges like FMS, SP Chen, and JBMS and all. So why didn't you consider them for that matter?
So in fact, I did not even consider Lucknow and Kozhikode, even though they are very brilliant colleges.
Right.
Because a lot of things were going in my mind, and I had to consider a lot of factors, such as since I am a wheelchair user and I am permanently have to use a wheelchair, I had to look at the infrastructure of the colleges and the city itself. So the city needs to be accessible as well, apart from the college. And since Lucknow and Kozhikode are sort of tier 2 cities, so accessibility was one of the issues. And SP Jain and TES and other colleges in Mumbai, though they are great colleges, but the cost of living in Mumbai was too much for me to there.
So basically, is it safe to assume that you chose your surroundings and your city as a higher preference while making the decision?
Not the highest preference, but yeah, a pretty high. It had a pretty high weightage in my decision making. The first and foremost was that I need to go to the best college, otherwise there is no point in doing an MBA. Second was I needed to look at the infrastructure and the accessibility, and I spoke to a few people, and based on that I made my decisions.
Right. But to all our viewers, I still think, Wagish, this is still a very risky thing to just fill top 3 colleges of the top 20 IIMs, right? So do you have anything to say to our viewers on this aspect?
Don't do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, perfect. So again,
So I would suggest that people try this. I had like some crazy moment that I had, but I don't think that it is the best way to go. In fact, in retrospect, I feel that I should have filled the forms for Lucknow and Kozhikode as well. And even Indore. I think all these are great colleges. Not saying that new IIMs and baby IIMs are not up to the mark, but I had certain needs. I had a certain work experience, and for me, it only made sense to pursue an MBA if I could go beyond that threshold.
Right. And perfect. So, Wagish, when did you start preparing for the CAT exam?
So, I prepared for CAT in two parts. So,
Right.
after my accident, I had like 6 months of physiotherapy, during which time I was in Delhi, and I had nothing else to do. So, during that time, I joined an online service of career launcher, and I started preparing, and I focused mainly during that time on the verbal ability and the tips and tricks to solve LRDI.
Right.
Didn't focus that much on quants at that time. But I did not give CAT during that year because I got a job in Tata Steel, and I felt that maybe I should postpone the plans to give an MBA exam. So eventually, when I did give the CAT exam in 2021, so I did not do much of preparation, to be very honest. I had my confidence in my verbal ability section because I felt very comfortable with it.
Right.
I did practice LRDI, I did practice a bit of quants, and eventually, as a result, I screwed up my quants completely.
Okay.
But by some stroke of luck, I cleared the cutoffs for all the colleges.
Right. Perfect. So, Wagish, was the CAT only exam that you appeared for, or were there certain other exams as well, like XAT, IFT, SNAP?
No, CAT was the only exam that I appeared for.
Got it. And Wagish, is there any one thing that you can tell our viewers that it helped you actually crack the CAT exam?
Yeah. So, I'll speak from the perspective of people who are already working, because I can relate to that, and maybe they'll also be able to relate to me. So one of the things is, when do you prepare? Because especially people who are working in an IT field where there are no set job hours, you have to be available every time, every day of the week. It gets a bit tedious. When do you prepare? So for that, what I used to do, I did not believe that every day I need to study 4 hours or maybe 3 hours, but that need not be like in a single instance. Whenever I got time, I used to study, and what I did was I left the topics which I needed to learn for the weekends, and on the weekdays when I was working, I used to only practice the topics that I knew or understood already. So in that way, I was able to balance my work and my learning preparation for CAT as well.
So basically, you worked on your strengths while you thought you were going to be busy, but you worked on your weaknesses when you thought you have more time to work upon them. So basically, is it safe to say that on your part, it was time management that helped you crack the CAT exam?
Definitely. And also I had, in my case, I was, you can say, a bit fortunate that I had a bit of confidence in my verbal ability section. So in that aspect, there was not so much pressure on me because I did not have to prepare as much for that section.
Right.
And I could put my attention to LRDI and quant section.
Right. So perfect. And Wagish, now let's jump straight away to the GDPI experience. So how was your GD experience or VAT experience, if you appeared for any?
Yeah, so we did not have GDs.
Right.
I think so, yeah. No. We did have a WAT for most of the colleges. We had to write a 500-word SOP or maybe 1,000-word SOP. So the most simplest way to crack a WAT is iterations. Right. Iterations after iterations. Write a basic structure. First of all, jot down all the points that you want to present to the person who is evaluating you. And then develop a basic draft around it. Show it to some people. They will give you some feedback, and try to involve people who are already pursuing MBA or who have pursued MBA. Right. If you don't have such people around you, that's not a problem, but it would be better if they could share their experiences with you. So in that way, I was very lucky because I had a few friends who were from XLRI and who were IIM alumni. So they helped me correct my structure of the SOP. Structure matters a lot. Your SOP should be interesting. It should portray what you are as a person, not just your educational and your work experience background. And I think that's it. It all depends on the number of iterations you have. Even if you have to have 20 iterations, you should go for it until unless you are satisfied that this is the best SOP that you can put out.
Right. So, did you write just SOPs, or did you also write some, like, for example, IIM Ahmedabad has this AWT test, like, right? So, for which you have to write something on a certain topic. So, did you appear for something like this for any?
No, I did not have a call from A. I had a call from B, C, and FMS. And
Right.
in all of these, there were SOPs, and there were also other questions like what was the one experience, one moment in your work experience that you feel that you could handle pressure or you brought a change to your team. And I feel a lot of the times these questions are aimed at finding out how you do things differently, or how stable, calm how you can maintain your calmness among the chaos that goes around. And I think you need to write an answer that showcases those skills.
Perfect. And Wagish, let's jump to the PA experience, the IIM Bangalore PA experience. How was it?
Great. And in fact, if I thought that I was the only one who had a great experience, it turns out everybody who I spoke to had a great interview experience at IIM B. But yeah, so IIM B interviews tend to go a little longer, on the longer side of things. So my interview was around 40 minutes, and generally people were saying that it ranged between 35 to 50 minutes for everybody. And it tends to be a lot more of an analytical nature. They will throw questions like one of the interesting questions that I was asked is if an Amazon sells 100 crore worth of products on Diwali and 100 crore worth of products on Eid.
Right.
So how does Amazon decide which day had the better sale? Right. So there are a lot of ways you can answer this question, but they judge you on your analytical ability, how you are analyzing the problem.
Basically on your thought process.
Yes. And I asked if there is any other details, so they will not give any other details.
So did you do it based on solely on your assumptions, like other assumptions that you have to make for such kind of decision?
So so it has to be your assumptions, your experiences, which help you formulate an answer. But you have to maintain a structure. You have to give a reasoning for your answer. You cannot just go for a hit and trial approach. So what I said was, because the demographic of people who celebrate Eid is very less compared to demographic of people who celebrate Diwali. 100 crore sale on Eid is a far better metric than 100 crore sale on Diwali.
Right.
So that was one of the answers. But there are several ways you can answer this question. There are no correct ways to do it, but there should be a proper reasoning behind whatever you are saying.
Got it.
Similarly, a lot of other questions like, how do you decide Swiggy riders who might meet accidents? How do you decide whether they are Swiggy riders or whether they are common people?
Right.
And so basically it was a case study interview.
And we have also heard from our past interviews that the interviews usually revolve around the academics and your experiences and basically your work ex. So was also your interview around the same lines, or something all solely based on case-based interviews, was it?
Yeah, but again, they did ask me about my work experience, what I do, but they took information from that and they formulated a question around that experience, which again was a sort of like you had to solve the question that was thrown at you.
So did you start preparing for the GDPI after your CAT results were announced, or when the scorecard was announced? So basically, when did you start preparing for your group discussions and interviews?
No, I started it after the CAT results were announced. And I saw my results and I was pretty confident that I will get the calls at least from 2 of the 3 colleges. Right. So I started preparing for GD, and we did not we were certain that we were not going to have GD. So we focused mostly on personal interviews and such. And we had one-to-one interviews with our coach, and I had one-to-one interviews with some of my friends as well, and they gave valuable feedback. Right. There were some of the things that I was hesitant to put forward in my interview, which they said that I should put forward. There were some of the things that I was glossing over, which they said that I should go more in detail about. For example, when I was to the question, tell us about your work experience, I was trying to come up with an answer which was very generic and very theoretical. But they said, no, you should go more into detail about your work so that you can make it interesting.
So, Wagish, how true is it that you can actually control how the interview should go? So, do you have some opinion on this?
Yeah, I think that depends on the interviewer, because if the interviewer is interested in you, and if the interviewer a lot of factors goes into it. The interviewer has to be in a good mood. You have to be one of the people who are in the earlier slots, not on the later slots. But that is not a very important metric. You can still convert a boring interview into an interesting one. But a lot of that depends on the interviewer. They have to be receptive to whatever you're saying.
Okay.
One of the interview experiences in IIM Calcutta, the interview experience was very academic based, and that in that case it is difficult to steer it into a direction that is favorable towards you, because the interviewer will only be interested in knowing the answers to the questions that he's asking academic wise, and you cannot steer the conversation into any other direction.
So Wagish, you said that you started preparing for the GDPI after the CAT exam, basically after the first week of January, right? So when were the calls released for IIM Bangalore and Calcutta?
I don't remember exactly, but I think it was by the end of January or early February. I think so. So by that time all the calls were released.
Basically 1 to 1.5 months of preparation was enough for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it should be enough for most of the people. But there is a very big catch here that your vocal communication skills and your verbal English should be at least up to the mark. Otherwise, I think you will need a bit more time to prepare.
So could you provide us with some resources that you used during your GDPI preparation?
I did not use any resources as such, because I was pretty certain, because it had been a long time since my undergraduation and I had 4 years of experience. So I was certain that my work experience would come into the play. So I was mainly focused on remembering what I did and how I did it, and the logic behind it. So that was one area where I prepared, and I did prepare for some of the generic questions like why MBA and why this particular college. Tell me something interesting about yourself. So these are the questions which a student should it should be on the tip of your tongue. You should not even need to think about it. This you have to prepare. But other than that, I think it is mostly about you as a person and how you come off to the interviewer, and I think that a lot of decision making happens during that process.
Right. And I think we should wind up here, Wagish. So do you have any final words for our viewers?
Yeah, stay calm. And I'm assuming that all of you would have seen your results by now.
Right.
So interviews are a lot about who handles the pressure best.
Right.
And just listen to me when you're in that waiting room waiting for your interview. Just listen to some chill music, watch an episode of Friends, calm yourself, and it will be fine.
Great. So Wagish, thank you so much for your time. I know how hectic can it be in the IIM Bangalore rigor. I know how hectic can be. So thank you so much for your time, Wagish, and to all our viewers, this was it. We hope we were able to add some value to your CAT preparation. So thank you so much for joining. And Wagish, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a great experience.
Thank you.